The film begins with an unsettling image of an egg yolk being injected with a strange green fluid. The yolk splits apart, producing an identical copy of itself. The scene transitions to the Hollywood Walk of Fame, zooming in on the star of celebrity Elizabeth Sparkle. The passage of time is portrayed as fans initially gather around her star in adoration, only for her fame to fade, leaving her an afterthought in the eyes of the public. Elizabeth, now hosting a TV aerobics show called Sparkle It Up, struggles to maintain her relevance. When she finds the women's restroom occupied, she ducks into the men's room, only to overhear Harvey, the network president, discussing plans to let her go because she's turned 50. Shaken by the conversation, Elizabeth later meets Harvey for lunch, where he confirms her fears by officially terminating her contract. On her drive home, Elizabeth notices a billboard featuring her image being taken down. Distracted and distressed, she gets into a serious car accident. At the hospital, a nurse performing her checkup tells her she's a perfect candidate and discreetly slips a flash drive into Elizabeth's jacket pocket. On her way out, Elizabeth runs into Fred, an old high school acquaintance. He gushes over her beauty, gives her his number, and awkwardly tries to rekindle a connection despite his overly eager demeanor. Back at home, Elizabeth watches the contents of the flash drive. It features an advertisement for a product called The Substance, which promises users the chance to live as a younger, enhanced version of themselves. The catch: the user must switch between their young and old bodies every 7 days. Initially skeptical, Elizabeth rejects the idea but later reconsiders, driven by loneliness and a yearning for her former glory. She calls the number provided, and is given an address with instructions to share hers. Elizabeth receives an ID card, and arrives at a hidden facility down a shadowy alley. Inside, she finds a deposit box with her number containing vials of the substance. Back home, she injects herself with the green fluid. Soon after, she collapses in pain as a deep slit forms along her back. From the opening emerges a younger, stunning version of Elizabeth, who stitches up the wound and uses a stabilizing fluid on both bodies to maintain balance. The younger version of Elizabeth adopts the name Sue and quickly secures a spot at Elizabeth's former network after impressing Harvey. Sue revels in the attention and energy of her youthful life. However, when she reverts to Elizabeth, her life feels mundane and insignificant. Her only notable activity is returning to the network to collect her belongings from Harvey. As Sue, she launches her own fitness show, which Harvey agrees to schedule around her unique circumstances. To manage her dual lives, Sue constructs a hidden room in the bathroom to conceal Elizabeth's unconscious body. The noise irritates a neighbor, who initially complains but is immediately smitten and backs off upon meeting Sue, dazzled by her appearance. One evening, Sue brings home a man named Troy for a romantic encounter, but as the night progresses, her nose begins to bleed. A sign that her time as Sue is up. Desperate for more time, she recycles a stabilizer tube and extracts additional fluid from Elizabeth's body, extending her transformation long enough to stay with Troy. When Elizabeth awakens, she notices her right hand has aged prematurely, appearing withered and frail. Alarmed, she contacts the substance hotline, only to be told the effects are permanent and that she must maintain the balance between her two forms. She is also warned against viewing Sue as a separate person, as Sue and Elizabeth are one and the same. After picking up a refill kit, Elizabeth visits a diner and encounters an elderly man with a birthmark identical to the nurse's. The man warns her of the destructive consequences of using the substance and cryptically asks if Sue has begun eating away at her. Panicked, Elizabeth rushes out, only to be confronted by an angry Troy retrieving his motorcycle from her building. Elizabeth finds Fred's number and decides to accept his offer for dinner. Fred enthusiastically agrees and makes a reservation. However, as Elizabeth prepares to leave, she becomes fixated on the billboard for Sue's show visible outside her window. Her mood sours and she keeps going back to the bathroom, alternating between removing and reapplying makeup, frustration growing with each glance at the billboard. Consumed by bitterness and self-doubt, she ultimately decides to bail on the date, leaving Fred waiting without any explanation. During a taping of Sue's show, she fumbles a take after feeling something bulging against her back. Disturbed, she excuses herself from the set before playback can reveal anything unsettling. In the bathroom, Elizabeth pushes the lump down her body, horrified as a whole chicken leg emerges from her belly button. Furious, Sue later calls the hotline to complain about Elizabeth's overeating and drinking habits, which have begun to interfere with Sue's ability to enjoy her fleeting time as a younger version of herself. Sue arrives at the studio only to discover her show's taping has been unexpectedly cancelled. When she confronts Harvey, he surprises her with an offer to host a New Year's Eve special, thanks to her rising popularity. Sue eagerly accepts and begins taking more time away from Elizabeth than allowed. However, when she eventually reverts to Elizabeth's body, she finds it severely deteriorated, frail, hunched, and barely able to move. Elizabeth spends her days trying to distract herself, experimenting with a French cookbook Harvey once gifted her as a backhanded gesture. Her hatred for Sue festers as she watches her younger counterpart mockingly discuss Elizabeth's old show during a talk show appearance. Frustrated by Elizabeth's unhealthy habits, Sue retaliates by extracting stabilizing fluid from her body over 3 grueling months. The extraction site becomes infected, and when Sue attempts to use the fluid one last time, it oozes out, necrotic and unusable. Panicked, she calls the hotline, only to be told she has reached the end of her allotted time for Sue's body. Desperate and out of options, Sue reverts to Elizabeth's body, which is transformed into a grotesque, disfigured abomination. Determined to end the nightmare, Elizabeth decides to terminate the substance once and for all. She prepares a black fluid intended to neutralize Sue and begins injecting it into her younger self's chest. However, she hesitates and stops before using the entire syringe. Sue awakens to find herself face to face with Elizabeth, and in a fit of rage, violently attacks her. Sue smashes Elizabeth's face repeatedly against a mirror, ultimately killing her in a brutal frenzy. Sue heads to the network to prepare for the New Year's Eve special, but her body begins to deteriorate rapidly. Her teeth fall out, fingernails peel away, and her left ear slides off. Desperate, Sue rushes home and finds the last vial of activator fluid, hoping it will restore her youth. Instead, the fluid creates a monstrous abomination dubbed Monstro Elisa Sue, a grotesque amalgamation of limbs, teeth, breasts and Elizabeth's face grotesquely embedded on its back. Monstro Elisa Sue makes its way to the network, crudely disguised in Sue's dress with a poster of Elizabeth's face taped to it. On stage, the poster falls away, revealing its horrific form to a stunned audience, including children. Harvey attempts to kill the creature by smashing its head with a microphone stand, but the head regenerates. Limbs fall off, spraying the room with a fountain of gore, drenching everyone in a horrifying spectacle. The creature stumbles out of the studio before collapsing into a putrid heap. From the remains emerges a fleshy mass with Elizabeth's original face. Crawling weakly towards her Hollywood Walk of Fame star, Elizabeth smiles one final time, imagining sparkles raining down on her. As morning comes, her dissolved remains are scrubbed away by a floor cleaner, leaving no trace of her existence behind. If you had the chance to use the substance and switch between a younger and older version of yourself every 7 days, would you take it? Why or why not? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. I'll see you next time.